Welcome back to another episode. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of The Fellas. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe, and hit the notification bell to stay up to date on all things The Fellas. So, guys, the Grand Prix of Imola. I thought it was a great race. What do you guys think, Simon?
I thought it was a very interesting race. A lot of details that we're going to talk about today, but definitely interesting race from all aspects of, I believe, Max asserting his dominance within the race again, giving McLaren something to mull over going forward. But interesting race is telling me that this is going to be a fun year. We have 3 contenders, possibly 4 if Russell gets his stuff together. But yeah, good race.
Yep, right.
It was entertaining. As I said, first corner was entertaining. It was an entertaining race overall. It kept me engaged.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I think so too. Max really asserted himself. Came in, and I took a peek at our predictions from the last race, and we're all wrong because none of us had Max to win. We only had him, I think, to finish third and one of us second. But anyway, that first corner move, oh my, on Oscar Piastri, oh my God, that was fire.
Yeah,
that was fire.
Yeah, definitely thought that was interesting, man. Especially, I believe Oscar thought he had the corner sewed up. Yes. He thought, I'm going to coast instead of hitting brake late.
Yep.
And Max, from what I understand from the data that was introduced, Max was going into that corner 30 kilometers faster than Oscar. Oscar definitely got off the gas way too early, thought he was ahead of Max and thought he had the corner all to himself. And if you hear and if you listen to what Russell said during the commentary, Russell was trying to figure out why is he slowing down at the corner so quickly. He's like, right? So he's like, Piastri, what are you doing? Right. So I thought that was interesting and telling, but definitely Oscar blew it, and Max did his thing without even question.
Yeah. I think when I looked at it, first of all, Max, that was what I would call, he just sent it, like almost throwing a Hail Mary, like, I'm just going up here. Let's see what happens, right? And I don't think Oscar expected it. And also, being that George got such a good start and was coming up on the outside, he was trying to cover him as well. So he was just in a bad spot. Like, he had 2 roaring cars coming down on him, and I guess he didn't think Max would do that, come up on the inside like that. So he's trying to cover out for George, and Max said, "No, I'm taking it." So that was good. Ray, what are your thoughts on that first corner move by Max?
I think it was a stellar move on his part.
Okay.
It's like we're having some technical difficulties, but
yeah, with Ray's signal. But
I can't take anything away from him. He's a good driver.
Yeah, I'll
say a stellar move
short and sweet.
Yeah, I'll say it this way. I got to give it to Max. That right there had me screaming again when I saw it. I said, "Oh my God!" Like he did it. But here's the thing I want to say about that. What I think going back to Lando, that I think it got to Oscar, but I think he's gonna come back stronger because now he knows. Like he didn't expect that. And I think he's gonna come back even stronger because now he knows. Like, okay, Max will send a Hail Mary in here to get it and muscle his way through. Yeah. Whereas I think Lando in that situation would have probably jumped out his way a little bit more. But
yeah, anyway. I mean, Piastri and Oscar Piastri, sorry, is going to learn from this. He's going to definitely understand that when Max is behind you, you don't give up. You don't let take your foot off the brakes and do things that will compromise your race, because it compromised the whole entire race after that.
Right.
That one move and that one corner completely compromised his race. And I don't know. He's probably looked back on that now and saying, on the first corner, I really lost the race. Yeah, you did.
Well, I don't think he necessarily lost it there, but Ray, before I say my thoughts, what do you think? Do you think he lost it there?
It's made it challenging because the track was hard to pass on, right? That it was known that it's an old school track. You can't really run off the boundaries or you're in the sand. So I think Oscar thought that he had the inside and that there was no room for Max. But if you watch, they showed a picture of Max in car. Max squeezed Oscar but leave just enough room on the inside. So Max already eked out his space by moving his car over, right? Because when they came across where pit joins the straight, they had more than a car length, well, approximately more than like a car width away from the edge of the road. But the road then closes up, right, as you leave pit and go down. So Max was in place already.
Right.
I think looking back, what Oscar needed to do and didn't get to do is that he needed to be in the middle of the track, right? So if anybody wanted to go around him, they'd have to put a wheel off to go around him.
Right.
But he hugged the inside, closely because he was, he was trying to stop George from coming up on the inside, right? And he just, I don't think he thought that Max was going to throw it down on the outside like he did. Right. So. Yeah, that's why Max is, I may not like what he does, but he has the skill to do it. And he does take those steps. But when they showed the in-car with Max, there was just enough room between Max's tire and front tire and Oscar's front tire, just enough. I don't think somebody could stand between the two tires, just enough when he went in. So he made sure that he had space to do it.
Well, that's what, that's the thing when you say Max claimed his real estate early, knowing what he was going to set up to do down. It's a chess move, like he claimed his real estate early, set his car in that spot and held that ground. So just to give him enough room to squeeze by. Yeah, listen, man, that was the pass of a 4-time world champion. That's what I said. And I was happy for him. But going back to what you said, Simon, I don't necessarily think that first corner, losing the first place on the first corner cost him. I think his first pit stop cost him, for what Ray said, because when he went in, then he had to deal with all the traffic and what was happening. I forgot what the pit lane delta was. It was like 20-something seconds.
It's a very long pit lane, so you spend a lot of time in there when everybody's going full bore.
Yeah. Correct, right? And it's like 20-something seconds. But what happened, because McLaren pitted him then, and he had to work through all these other cars that did not have to get out of his way, and a lot of them didn't. That delta increased up to 30-some-odd seconds, which would mean Max would be able to pit and come back out and still be ahead of him down the road. So, right? And I think that's what cost him. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, the reason why I think that cost him, because he wouldn't have to do that if he was in the lead.
True that.
Right. So if he has his strategy changed, right? If you're on pole and you're in the lead and you got clean air, you start to, I guess, react to the other drivers, right? Whatever the other drivers are doing, you look at the telemetry and all the data, and the data will tell you, yeah, we need to pit based on our lap times. But as you saw, the medium tires, after they got hot, started to cool down and get into a drivable mode, especially for Norris and for Max. So he would have gone through that, and he would have realized that as well, and would have stayed in front and not have to go through the pits and the 30 seconds and the extra 10 seconds through the pit lane that everybody else had to go through. I mean, I believe it cost him the race. You can see Lando didn't pit.
Yeah.
And Lando was like, well, I'm third or fourth anyway, so let me just see how these tires react. And he was going to react how Verstappen reacted. And that's basically.
So I think, yes, McLaren did pit him early, right? Because some of the commentators are trying to figure out who they're trying to cover with that move, why they pit him. Because I think Pirelli had said that, or they discovered from the weekend that you pit with the mediums at lap 19 is when you need to really think about getting off your mediums, right? And they pushed him to do it earlier. So I'm not sure what strategy they were after at that point, who they're trying to cover.
Right. It wasn't a strategy. You saw a lot of people were pitting. It was because the tires were just weren't reacting. They weren't doing what they were supposed to do at lap 12 and 13. They were almost feeling like they were worn out.
Yeah, there were a tire that if you get them too hot, they're going to fall off. They'll fall off.
But the guys that were pitting were all the back runners, right? If I remember correctly, there wasn't the guys up in the top 5 that were jumping out.
No, it wasn't that.
No, but they had nothing to lose in that sense, right? But the tires still wasn't working for Piastri. He wasn't catching up, or he wasn't getting ahead. So he thought, well, the tires were going out. I might as well go change and get that delta difference. Yeah.
Well, so he's trying to cover Max then. He was trying to cover Max by jumping out first.
Correct.
But then got sideswiped.
Right. By having to climb back through the field, and no one has to get out of his way, and a lot of them didn't. So that killed him there. Yeah. That ultimate, put it this way, as Simon said, losing the first place in the opening did it, but this put the nail in the coffin and sealed it.
Right.
For him.
Right.
Yeah, because of them coming through, right? Because I'll say this, based upon what we saw in the opening part of the race, Red Bull had pace. And I don't know if people are claiming that McLaren had pace. I don't know, but they did something to that Red Bull car that it had pace. Yeah. Right. And I don't know if McLaren could have come back, and because look, he gapped him within the first lap before DSC came on. Mm-hmm. Drag reduction came on. He gapped him, right? His strategy is get in front, then create a gap so that you don't when you have drag reduction come on, it doesn't apply because you're outside of that window. Mm-hmm. So that's raw pace on the car, right? That's the way I see it. That's raw pace. He's not getting help any other aerodynamic aids. He's just using what he has with the car.
And he's getting clean air.
Yeah, well, of course. Yeah, clean air is always helping because that's what's keeping the tires under him to go through those corners. But still, it is quick. He gapped them really quick.
Yeah, he did. Simon?
Yeah, I what you said last week, Ray, was dead on. And I hate to say it. I hate to give you the credit for it, but you said that last week was dead on about the car is set up for Max.
Yeah,
the car is set up for Max, right? You put anybody else in that Red Bull, they're going to do what Tsunoda has done, Sergio Perez, you name it. They're going to be in 10th, 11th, maybe even 12th place, right? And I think Lewis is kind of going through that, and Charles is going through that as far as they're trying to set up the car for both drivers right now. And I think Charles is just a little further ahead than Lewis. But overall, Max is driving the heck out of that car, and he had pace today.
Yeah,
he had pace.
Yeah.
So
it's funny. Okay, so we would say that with Oscar, but then the other thing that also played into Max and other teams' favors were the virtual safety car and the safety cars when those were deployed.
Right.
Ray, what are your thoughts on that?
Sorry.
On
the safety car stepping
up?
up?
And the virtual safety car, yeah.
Yeah, well, so again, that was a gift to Max. This was Max's race because that was divine intervention. Okay, I'm going to say, we've been ragging Max so much that divine intervention stepped in and said, hey, we're going to fix Max right here. And that's what helped Max, right? Because he was still running on those tires out there. And then this gave him the opportunity for him to come on in and not lose time going through the pits, right? Yeah. And that's when, I think they came back in and they put, I was surprised they came back and threw, I realized why. They didn't have any more other tire, but they threw Lewis on mediums, right? During that time when he went, to go back out. But then he got stuck behind people. So, again, it's like what played out with him from last year. Mm-hmm. But no, divine intervention from Max, man. He came in and that, it's like they couldn't have planned it any better and they capitalized on it, right?
Yeah. Oscar benefited from it also. Not Oscar, Lando benefited from it also, right? So
Yes.
it just helped. It just hurt Piastri, over and over. That first corner just really. He's gonna learn from it. I know he's stewing right now, going, man, I should have been a little bit more aggressive on that turn, and I probably would have won the race. He knows it. You can't
so
let
be true to myself, though.
Max is behind you, huh?
Let me be true to myself. There's a conspiracy on. See, Zach doesn't want Oscar to win it.
Okay. Okay.
And could you explain why? Okay,
I can explain why. Because Lando is his boy. You see what I'm saying? And he wants Lando to land it first, and then Oscar can do after. But he doesn't want Oscar to be up front to take it away from his boy.
So how do you know Lando is his boy? How do you got inside?
Man, you just watch the interaction after the race. You can tell he's his boy.
Yeah. All right. Okay.
You see, Ray dug a hole, and then Simon threw him a back hole to make the hole bigger. I see how this goes, but okay. All right, moving on.
That's funny.
But it's funny. Yes, that was the virtual safety car, but then came the safety car as well, which also robbed poor Oscar again of anything and benefited Max, benefited Lewis. It killed
Charles.
Charles was complaining though because of the tires he had to choose. He had to take at that point.
Yes. Because they had a discussion with Charles because he wanted to go to soft, but his engineer would say there's too many laps left. But so the soft wouldn't work. Right. And I think he had a used set of mediums that already had like 15 laps on it. Right. And I guess the engineering was coming back that wasn't going to work either. But he had no more hards to go to. Right. So he was kind of stuck out there because he used his tire allotment. That was my takeaway from that.
Because here's my thing on that when we talk about Charles and Lewis. When the race started and Lewis was on the hards and I was watching him, it didn't seem he didn't seem happy with the car. He didn't seem to have the pace, right? Compared to Charles, who was on the mediums. But we know how the mediums work. So I was pleasantly surprised when Lewis put on the first set of when he dropped the hards, went to mediums, and then dropped the mediums, went back to hards. And then I was like, whoa, but he has pace now. And, I don't fully understand it yet. I don't know if it's that he kind of figured it out, but
he had to change tire, right? So you got it from what I recall, if you start on a particular tire compound, you have to go to a different compound within the race. Right. So because I was at the same way, I was like, why are they screwing Lewis over and putting him on mediums? And then I realized, wait a minute, he started on hards, so he can't go back to hards right away. He had to move off of it. So they went to mediums and then,
No, I understand that. But what I'm saying is his first stint on the first set of hards was nowhere as good as his third stint on the second set of hards. So he came alive when he put on those second set of hards after the medium.
So this is my take on that. Yes, in the first stint, he was watching Antonelli the whole time, behind Antonelli. Right. But I think when the second safety car came out, Lewis' spirit changed. I was listening on the radio. Okay. He saw that the possibility that was there because he was getting pissed. He's like, "Why we not go? Why is the safety car not going in right now?" And he keeps asking the engineer, "How many more laps to the end of the race? How many more laps in the race?" Because his spirit changed. Lewis said he saw the possibility pop up in front of him because then he was going to come alive and run down Oscar because he didn't have the tire, right? So his spirit changed on that second go around because when I was listening to his radio, he was like, he was on the engineer. He's like, man, I can't believe they're doing this. Why is the car still not out there? Why, And he kept saying, how many laps to the end of the race? So. Right.
So
go ahead, Tom.
Of course, he's going to be a little spirited because of what happened to him in 2020, right? The safety car went in mad early, and he let all the cars and some cars go around. But
of course, I'm there with you on that.
Yes. I was saying the same thing because it started off with 17 laps to go when the safety car came out. It was 11 by the time they actually let the safety cars go, right? But yes, I believe the reason why, Ralph, that you saw the hards not do as good as the second set of hards is because Antonelli had pace. and Lewis couldn't pass him. Until the safety car came out. And even when they went into the virtual safety car, Lewis Antonelli almost hit him in the pits because they changed their tires so quickly as well. Right. Antonelli was a thorn in his side for a third of that race. And I think he had the pace. If he had gotten around Antonelli, I think he would have caught Albon, in my opinion.
Okay.
Can I just ask a question? So, do you think Lewis was playing the long game instead of pushing it? Because there were a couple times when he came up on him on the front straight, right? And I noticed for a car to really execute a pass, you have to be alongside the car at the line where pit out ends, right? You have to have the momentum that you're already beside the car, so that by the time you pass pit out, you can go in front of the car. So you kind of stamp your thing on saying, I'm here. Whereas when Lewis was behind Antonelli in the first half, he was not getting that far past him or beside him to stay stamp on it. I saw a couple of attempts where he could have pushed it, but I'm wondering, do you think he was just playing the long game as opposed to hot dogging it, go for it?
You want me to answer that real quick? Yes. Short answer is yes. Long answer is I believe the strategy with the hards is to go longer than the mediums, right? So if you're going to run really hard to try and pass someone, you're eating up that strategy. You're eating up your tires. So he's like, well, I'm going to try and pass him without eating up my tires. And he just couldn't do it, right? He knew that, he would have to be very aggressive at Antonelli in order to pass him. But that would the consequence of that is eating up his hard tires, which is supposed to go longer to get him back up to the top 5, top 10.
There was a driver that said that. I forgot who it was for the. Sorry, I can't remember, but they were in a battle, same thing, and they were like the pit wall came and said, "Good job," and he was like, "Yeah, that I used up a lot of tires to do that." I'm not sure if it was Lewis, but
it was Lewis.
Yeah,
it was Lewis. Because the second set.
So can I say this, and not to beat a topic to death, but
no, go ahead.
Do you think that Lewis was going for the long game since he knew that the guys on mediums would have to pit before him, right? That would be less people in front of him, so he'd be gaining spots, trying to save the tire for when that does happen, that he has tire so that he can then push on.
I think so.
I believe he had a one-stop strategy.
Yeah.
Okay.
A lot of them did until.
Yeah.
A lot of them did until, but yeah, I think so. That would be the reason he was trying to do something different than Charles, knowing that the rest of the field was going out on mediums. Yeah, I'm going to do the hards and try and carry them down longer so that when those guys pit, I can stretch out a little bit more, build that gap. But yeah, okay.
So speaking of Charles, I while you were listening to the radio of Lewis, I was listening to the radio of Charles. And the frustration that he was illustrating on that radio was something else. I mean, I've never really heard him curse, but he said the F-bomb a few times. He was like, he couldn't believe how the safety car always messing with him, and then he was talking about how he was trying to talk the strategy that you mentioned, Ray, as far as trying to go back to the softs, and they're like, well, we got 17 laps to go. Softs are not going to give you the longevity that you need to win the race. Right. But I bet you if they knew they were going to come out on lap 11 or lap 10, they probably would have changed to the softs.
Yeah,
I believe it.
Yeah.
True. Good point. That the safety car was going to sit around for that long. Yeah.
8 laps. That's ridiculous. 7, 8 laps.
Yeah. Because that's what they all wanted. That's what Lewis was complaining. He wanted to get on there while his tires were fresh and not wear them down, even though at a slower pace behind the safety car.
He saw podium. He
wanted to come down.
Yeah. Piastri had 25 laps on his when the safety car was let go.
Yeah. And that's why Piastri couldn't even defend Lando, Lando said it. Yeah, his tires are ragged, right? he said it to the pit wall. His tires are ragged, so I'm not asking him to let me by, but
I am asking to let me by.
Yeah, but he is asking to let me by. Okay, so moving into that. So Ferrari, we kind of touched on some of the Ferrari team strategies between Lewis and Charles. Let's start with you, Simon.
Yeah, I mean, we touched on it. I think Lewis benefited the most from the virtual and the safety cars and the team strategy really giving him something to work with. But he mentioned during the post-race interviews that he felt the car felt better this week, and he was very happy about where the car is now, right? And I want to see that next week in Monaco to see if they really have something, right? The practice and the qualifications are going to tell me if they have something, right? I know you're shaking your head, Ray, but this is race 7, which is race 6 or 7.
I think it's
race 7, right? And if he feels that the car is finally at a setup that he can work with after race 7, he didn't say it was good in qualifying but terrible in the race. He said we finally got it to a point where I can see me doing well in the car. So I want to see if he's telling the truth. I want to see next week during practice and during qualifying if he's going to be able to compete at least better than the Williams and better, up there with Mercedes. To me, if they can get the car to where Mercedes is, then that now he's competing for not only constructors points, but 3rd or 4th place.
Right.
So
right.
Can I just jump in real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
So Lewis on the radio, I think I heard him. He kind of somewhat apologized to his team about the qualification. He cheered them. He praised them on the car, right? And he said the car setup was good. That we need to keep pushing, keep going forward. But he did comment on qualifying that he's got to work on qualifying.
Yes, he does.
But the next place is the parade. Listen, Monaco is just parade laps.
Yes.
So if you don't land it on qualifying,
you're
just going to parade around until somebody fails. You know what I'm saying? Because it's been talk about, because of Monaco's history, that's why it's still on the calendar. But as far as seeing movements from cars on track, you don't really see it.
You don't really see it. I know we've said it before. The only places I've seen it in the past is coming out of the tunnel, running down. If you're able to get close to the car in front of you as you exit the tunnel, you can run down on them and try to squeeze them before you go through that chicane over there. That is about it. So yeah, if you don't wrap it up in qualifying and your team doesn't screw up your pit stop, that's what it comes down to. If they screw up your pit stop, you're done. But if you could qualify well, you're good.
Right. But that's it, right? So you want to make sure Ferrari wants to make sure they're either 4th, 5th, or 6th in qualifying, right? That's a good qualification for them, right? Leclerc probably knows the car a little bit better than Lewis because of the last 3 or 4 years, but he's probably going to be one position ahead of Lewis. But as long as Lewis is right behind him and they're competing with Mercedes, it opens the door up for, race 15 when they're adding more upgrades and things like that. Now it allows them to compete for 3rd, 4th, and 5th in the constructors, 3rd, 4th, and 5th in points as well, right? They're not going to beat McLaren, and they're going to have a hard time even competing with Verstappen right now. Piastri is 13 points ahead of Norris, and Norris is like 10 points ahead of around that area around of Verstappen. So Verstappen winning today was good for him to get points, but yeah, he wants to be 4th, 5th, or 6th in qualifying, and some of those rookies are going to put those cars in the wall.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a lot of pit strategy.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I'll say this though, of this race, I was happy when Lewis got on that second set of hards, that I was like, okay, yeah, he looks good. He's on fire. Like he's turned up the temperature on the boiler there. I enjoyed watching that, because other than that, I was like, come on, bro. I know it's tough, but I'm just rooting like, come on, get it together. I want to see that fire.
Well, he saw opportunity, right? Because from his radio, he saw opportunity, right? So, but I just want to touch on one thing, Simon. So I think Ferrari's battle right now is with McLaren. I'm sorry, not McLaren, Mercedes. That's who they're trying to. That's who they're trying to fight with, right? Okay.
Yep. That's who they're trying to.
I thought that's what I said. If I said something else, I apologize. But I thought Mercedes is who they should be battling right now, not Williams.
Yeah, no. Williams got their sights set on Ferrari.
Right.
Right.
you said something, Ray and Ralph, that is interesting, right? You saw that Lewis had something to drive for, right? And I think that's where his frustration was, not only last year with Mercedes, but now with Ferrari, is that he noticed that he's not in a position to fight for anything after practice and after qualifying. So in his headspace, look what he did the first sprint race. I mean, he won it.
Yeah.
Right? Because he qualified well.
Yeah.
And now he's like, well, I'm not giving this up. Now his headspace is in the right place. And he's like, well, I'm going to drive like I'm an 8th time winning champion. Right?
Right.
But yeah, you're right. I think Lewis' issue right now in his tenure in his career is it's hard for me to get out of bed and race the way I'm supposed to race if I'm already behind the 8 ball.
Right. Yeah, it shows you the mental fortitude that it takes as a driver as well. And I mean, to use the terminology, he's one of the elder statesmen out there. So he's been there, done that. So for him, I could see him saying that, yeah, I'm not gonna hustle myself, and this thing is not gonna get there. So you're right. I agree with what you said, Ray. Is that and Simon, that he sniffed it like, hey, I could, and he flipped that switch, and here he came. He jumped. I'm still hoping that maybe Charles could be that, because that's what your teammate's supposed to be, right? That's your first competitor, that you want to knock him out and be on top. And that's usually how the play goes to keep these drivers on full boil. You want to beat your teammate. But Lewis is different. He's been there, done that. So
I just don't think he's there yet. Sorry, Ray, if you allow me to. I don't think he's there yet. I think his eyes on Antonelli and Russell. I think that should be his focus, right? If he can get ahead of them, then now you can go focus on your teammate, because you ain't catching McLaren right now. Maybe not even Verstappen. But if his mindset should be in Antonelli and Russell, Ferrari, we need to beat them, and then we'll see what happens after we do that.
Well, it probably is. I'll say this right. It probably is, because Antonelli is technically driving Lewis's old car. So you want to beat that, But anyway, Ray, did you have something to close this out?
Well, so I would say this. I think the good thing is that Charles is not happy with the car also. And the way I'm taking it is because Charles has history with the team, he is edging against Lewis for now, right? Because it's like this. If you've been exposed to something before, right, you kind of understand the nuances. And then when you go to a new thing, you're trying, that's in a similar arena in which you were working in before. You're trying to assimilate that new thing quicker to you. But you can't help but compare it to what you already know, right? And it's hard for you then to relinquish what you know and just embrace what's there. And I think that's what's going through. That's what's Lewis is fighting with, right? Because he knows, from running the other car from Mercedes, how he got around certain things.
Right. And
now he comes and he's kind of seeing them here with the Ferrari, but those techniques are not working for this platform.
Right.
So now he has to reach a point where he says, you know what? It's a curse, right? Because now you got to try and figure out to suppress those old memories and old reflexes to develop new ones to embrace this new vehicle.
Right. And I'll say this, I can see that, because it's the same thing I think we see with Carlos and Alex, right? Alex has been in the Williams, right? Alex is able to extract a little bit more out of it. Carlos is new to the Williams and still getting his head around the car. So for now, Alex is outperforming Carlos, but I mean, Carlos is a good driver. I have a feeling he will get a handle on it and start really, pulling it up. And you see that. You see little glimpses of it where he gets it every now and then. So I agree with you with that, with Lewis. So moving into weekend surprises. I mean, we talked about Max and everything and Ferrari, but I would think one of the surprises for the weekend for me was in qualifying when the Ferraris were knocked out by the Aston Martins, right? And then you had Kimi Antonelli knocked out by Pierre Gasly in the Alpine. Like that was wow. Like what did you guys think?
Yeah, I was surprised, because I thought, and I think I wasn't the only one. I think I heard a commentator that Adrian Newey had put a little sauce in their cars when Aston showed up, and I was like, oh, wait a minute, it's about to really get interesting now, because if Newey was able to tweak just a little bit of stuff to get him there, you give Alonso the opportunity, he ain't going anywhere. He's going to be all over that. Right. Yeah. So I was taken aback by that. And I was, and also with Albon, how they qualified for Williams, how they qualified also. I was kind of taken aback by that too. And I was like, it's going to be interesting. And yes, I was surprised. And I think even the drivers in the Ferrari cars were surprised, because I think I heard the radio for Charles, and he's like, he can't believe that, that was not good enough to put them in there. Right. So, those are my surprises also.
Yeah, Adrian Newey did something to those Aston Martins, because they came in 5th and 8th. So, whether, it was gas capacity or whatever he did to tweak them to give them, enough juice to get around that track for one lap. He's good at what he does. But as you can see from the results of the race, it didn't hold up for the amount of laps that needed, right? So, they ended up being in the back. After that, but yeah, it was a good surprise. I think it probably woke up Ferrari a little bit and say, hey, we can't take any time off. We can't take any days off. They got to figure some stuff out.
Yeah,
I know their engineer got on the radio with Lewis and said, the hard work that's paid off today, but they got a lot more work to do.
A lot more work to do.
And I'm hoping that somebody's in the factory working on next year's car, because right now, this year's, I don't know where they're going to end up, but they got a lot of room to try and climb back from.
Well, that's true too. And the other surprise was, we mentioned them, Williams.
Yeah.
Right? Because Alex, and he finished in 5th. Right? And he was pretty racy up against Charles as well. And then Carlos finished in 8th. So both in points, both of them in the points. And this started really where you saw them come up this strong from last week's race in Miami. Right? Before then, in the beginning of the season, weren't really, oh yeah, Williams looks good. And then all of a sudden, boom, they arrived. They arrived in Miami, and they're still here in Imola. So I'm very curious to see where they qualify for the next race in Monaco and the rest of the season. I was happy to see that again. I'm glad it wasn't a fluke.
So I want to put one more surprise that I got from the race. I can't believe that they put Colapinto back in the car, and he did what he usually does. He crashed it. So I think he's going to be gone.
Okay.
You think they're going to bring back Dewey? I don't think so.
No, Duhan is not coming. Yeah, he's not coming back. He's not coming. I'll say this, Ray. I hear you. Where did he finish? 16th. You know what it was? It was said that Flavio Briatore said, "Listen, we just put him back in the car as long as he doesn't crash it," which he did. But, and he starts to accumulate and get acclimatized to it, he'll be fine. Now, that crash, I'm not mad at him for it. I don't think they're really mad at him for it, because he was pushing. Yeah, he pushed a little too hard, but he, like you said, it's a classic track. There's less margin for error if you go off the track. There's gravel there, there's grass, and he just put that tire out a little bit too much and went to the power too quickly and lost it. So I think if he does not crash in Monaco and continue, I think he has a good chance.
Not crash in Monaco. I feel for him. I feel for them all, right? Because, let's just face it. They are the best 25, 28 drivers in the world, right? We know they are. It does take time to not only learn the car, not only learn the engineers, figure out a communication strategy, figure out the track.
Yep.
I mean, you only get 3 practices. I'm surprised that they don't give people like half the year or maybe even a full year to kind of go through it. Yes, they should know the track because they raced on Formula 2 a little bit, but the cars are different, the teams are different. I just don't think it's fair for the rookies. And this is just me. I know money talks.
Yeah.
And this is just me trying to be diplomatic about the situation and have, some empathy. But I just couldn't. I just don't understand. They're the top 30, top 20 drivers in the world, and you don't think they're going to push it to the limits a little bit and realize, oh shoot, I went over the limit, and figure that out and get wise and gain more experience?
Yeah, they are. I mean, listen. That's why I said I don't think they're counting this crash against him though. I don't feel that they are right now. Yes, they need more time, and the way it happened, I think it was just. It's just a combination of things. He just got on the power a little too early. But yes, they need more time. But when you compare them to look at also Isaac Hadjar, he had some offs earlier on in the year, right?
You're insulting Isaac by putting him in the same category.
No. Isaac is the only one. He's second in the rookies. Kimi is up there, but Kimi is starting to whatever. But Kimi's still up there. Isaac had a couple offs, right? But hey, he finished ninth. He's driving the crap out of that car. He's settled in. He started to settle into the car. So I think for Colapinto just coming back first race, please don't. I feel it for him. He's going into Monaco. He better drive that so gingerly around there, not to crash, right? But I don't think they have the bullseye on him yet to get him out. I knew Doohan wouldn't last. I know I said it that I don't think he'll make it to the middle of the season. Or if that he would get there, but he's out.
You couldn't get it through practices, man.
I have one more surprise for you, if you guys.
Go ahead.
Max Verstappen raced at the Nuremberg last weekend under a made-up name, and as a F1 driver, they have clauses in there that they don't want you to be doing other sports.
Right. Really?
So, but I've not heard anything come of it in a negative sense that he's getting a fine.
So what are you trying to say, Ray? Go ahead and say it. What are you trying to say?
Well, I'm just saying, he's getting special treatment.
Saying he's getting special privileges? Is that what you're saying?
He's getting special treatment. Yeah, because he raced under a fake name. He raced a Ferrari 488 GT3 car last weekend at the Nuremberg.
He did.
How did he do?
I didn't check up on it. It just but I think he placed pretty high. If not, he won his class or something like that.
Well, he did say in the post-race interview that he loves motorsport. Like that's his thing. He loves driving. That's his thing, man. He was born for it. So they'll give him a pass, huh, Simon?
I am pretty sure that he got a waiver.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure he wouldn't have gotten that car if he didn't have a waiver.
Yeah.
Formula One is way too big, and if he crashes in a GT3 car and not able to race in Imola or Monaco, that would be disastrous, not only for Formula One, but for Red Bull and for everybody. So he'll be taking money out of everyone's pocket. There's some drivers, there's some sports where one player is bringing in money for everyone. Yeah. And he's one of them.
Yeah, he's one of them. Yeah,
he's one of them.
He's an exceptional driver, man. He's an exceptional driver, and he not even proved. He showed us that again this weekend with that opening. That opening pass and how he managed the race. So
it's a champion move.
Move. So
we'll do that again. Not to Piastri. Piastri put that as a notes. He's not going to be able to do that to Piastri again.
I believe that. Piastri's too calm, collect, and too secretly cunning, in my opinion, to allow him to do that ever again.
I agree. And the one thing I want to say that compare and contrast is in the post-race room when the drivers were sitting in there, Piastri was already there. Max came in. Piastri was watching the footage of the race. He saw like the start and how he got passed and all that, and it kept going. And Lando came in. Piastri spoke though. I mean, he's always a quiet guy anyway. But Lando said something. He spoke, but you knew he was upset. And to me, I was like, that was the difference between him and Max. Because I'll say it. I'm gonna take a page out of Ray's book. Max, when he lost the last time, it seemed like a bitch move from him. Like, come on, I know you're mad, you're upset that it happened, but don't pout. When you're in there, you could still speak. And when he didn't want to talk about it on the, when he was being interviewed. And I compared him to Piastri, where I was like, that's what I was thinking. I was like, Piastri saw that, and he's like, all right, never again. But then he spoke. He wasn't upbeat because he was pissed, but he spoke. He wasn't like closed down. So I think for a driver of Max's caliber, if he could work that out, because to me anyway, I mean, his fans probably don't care, but to me, it made him look a little like a sore loser. Whereas I think Piastri took it with some dignity, but you see, he didn't like it, and that's awesome.
I'll be honest, and this may be blasphemy, but I remember when I first started watching Formula One, and I was watching Lewis, and there were times where Lewis was a little baby when it came to some results, and I was just like, man, you could do better than that. You're a world champion. You don't need to be pouting a little bit. But I get it. So to them, losing is not an option, right? And it's never really their fault.
Yeah.
Somebody else's fault. And I'm sure it was same for Senna. I'm sure it was same for Michael Schumacher. I'm sure all of the greats probably have a little of that arrogance and a little of that stigma in them, where they're like, and they don't handle losing immediately well, right? If you lose and you give them a day to settle in, they'll probably be better at handling the reporters and handling the journalists. But losing right there, they're not going to handle it well.
I think I see that. I saw that with Lewis, and that was a critique. We didn't have a podcast then. That was a critique I had of him then too. I was like, come on, man. You could. Michael, when he was racing with Mika, never. If he lost to Mika, there was such mutual respect. You never saw that from Michael. You knew Michael was upset that he lost, but he respected Mika so much that it was almost like, if I'm going to lose, I hate it, but I could lose to him, but he would attack him the next race and get it. So I agree. They'll work that out. But Max is a little older, I would think, get on it, but whatever.
Yeah, at this point, you're right. At this point, you don't need to be a sore loser.
Right. But having said that, guys, so we're going to wrap this episode. We'll come back to you for the next race in Monaco, as always.
Any predictions for next week, right, Ralph?
Go ahead, Simon.
All right. So Piastri is going to win it next week. He's going to be upset about this week. I know that's a cop out and kind of sounds like it's an easy pick, but I think Piastri is going to do it. I do think Verstappen has some mojo now. I think he thinks he can compete with Lando and Piastri. So I'll probably put him second. And Lando is a wild card. So I'm just going to go with those three. I know that's easy, but yeah, Piastri, Verstappen, and Lando Norris.
Ray?
Well, okay. I'm going to step on a limb. It's going to be Charles because it's his home, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then it's going to be Oscar,
and
it's going to be Max.
Okay.
So Lando's nowhere in there, huh? Lando is fifth.
Lando's going to be behind Max.
Okay.
I give you some more predictions. A lot of rookies are going to crash. Go ahead. Sorry.
I'm going to say it this way because we know Monaco's all down to qualifying. Red Bull's been good there. I think it's going to be Max. It's going to be Oscar. And it's going to be Lando. And it's all going to be wrapped up in qualifying. Done. That's my thought. So, having said that, please join us next for the next race in Monaco. As always, please remember to like, share, and subscribe, and hit the notification bell to stay up to date on all things the fellas. Guys, we'll see you in 2 weeks for Monaco. Take care.